Welcome to the Revenge Story Times channel. Throughout my life, I have faced many challenges, but none hurt as much as that night. Those silent glances, the sound of a door closing, followed by a deep silence. That night, I didn't just lose my spouse, I lost my faith in them too. But the most striking part of the story was how everything reached that point. What would you do if you were in my place? Don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my channel to support me. If you're ready, let's begin. Avery was unusually meticulous that night. From where I sat, I watched her carefully apply her makeup in front of the mirror. She had put on her favorite dress, spending what seemed like hours to look flawless. But what caught my attention in that moment wasn't her beauty, something had changed. The warmth I used to see in her eyes was gone. Deep down, I sensed something was wrong. "I'm going to a colleague's birthday party," she said, without looking at me. "Don't wait up for me, I might be late." Her words only deepened the cloud of doubt that had been hovering over me. It seemed like a casual explanation, but it felt more like an escape. I couldn't hold it in any longer and voiced my unease. "You've been going out a lot lately, Avery," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "But every time you leave, I can't shake the feeling that something's off. What's going on?" Instead of answering, she busied herself with adjusting the strap of her high heels. "It's just a party," she said, her tone colder than I expected. "I want to have fun with my friends. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" Her words pierced me like a knife. Fun? Was it really about having fun? Memories of the moments we used to share flooded my mind. We used to tell each other everything, down to the smallest details. Now, it felt like everything was hidden behind a curtain of secrecy. "This isn't just about fun," I said, my voice firm with determination. "This is about us, Avery. Every night I sit here alone while you're out somewhere else. It drives me further away from believing in us. Why are you acting this way? Why are you pulling away from me?" For a fleeting moment, guilt flashed across Avery's face, but she quickly averted her gaze. "I don't want to argue, Ethan," she said, heading for the door. "It's just a party, that's all." But we had crossed a line. The fragile thread of patience inside me snapped. My words spilled out uncontrollably. "If you walk out that door tonight, don't come back." I realized the weight of what I had said immediately. My voice was trembling, trying to suppress my emotions. Avery froze, her hand pausing on the doorknob. When she turned to look at me, her face was a mix of anger and shock. "Are you serious?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I met her gaze and tried to speak as clearly as I could. "I'm serious," I said. "If you leave tonight, there's no coming back." For a moment, I thought she hesitated, but that hesitation was fleeting. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and whispered, "I'm leaving. We'll talk later." The door closed, and at that moment, I felt something break inside me. It wasn't just the sound of the door shutting, it was the bond between us snapping. I sat back down and stayed there in silence for a while. That silence marked the beginning of the end. The silence in the house after the door closed began to suffocate me. I tried to stay seated, but the turmoil inside me wouldn't settle. The fear and doubt I had always felt, but never admitted to myself, were now staring me in the face. Avery's fading footsteps deepened the distance between us, not just physically, but emotionally. About an hour passed. My phone lit up with a message. When I opened it, I felt my worst fears coming true. A friend had written, "I just saw Avery with a man on the street. Is everything okay?" Reading that message made my throat tighten. At that moment, I realized that the doubts that had been growing inside me for weeks had given way to a harsh reality. I paused, trying to figure out what to do. Should I call her? Should I ignore what my friend had said? But I couldn't do anything. My hands were trembling, my breath was short. Who was that man? What was going on? As thousands of thoughts raced through my mind, I sought refuge in the past. I remembered the early days when Avery and I first met, our laughter, long walks, and late-night conversations. Everything was so perfect that I was certain I wanted to spend my life with her. So, how had things come to this? I sat there for a while, crushed under the weight of my thoughts. I started questioning what I might have done wrong in the past. Had I neglected her? Had I not put in enough effort to keep our marriage alive? But no matter how much I thought about it, it didn't take me long to realize that the answer wasn't with me. Avery had chosen a different path without my knowledge. As the night wore on, I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Avery and that man. I imagined her on the street, laughing, walking comfortably as if nothing she did had any consequences. The anger and disappointment inside me mingled with each other. The thought of losing the woman I loved was more painful than anything else. By morning, Avery returned home. The ease with which she opened the door and acted as though nothing had happened only deepened my disappointment. She still looked beautiful in her dress, but her makeup was slightly smudged, a telltale sign that she had been out all night. I watched her as she drank her coffee in the kitchen. She acted as though nothing had changed. She greeted me with a casual good morning and got ready for work. But for me, everything had changed. I could no longer lie to myself. Her behavior was destroying the respect I had for our marriage. As I watched Avery quietly leave the room, I made a decision. This couldn't go on. I couldn't live my life in the shadow of a lie. As soon as Avery left the house, I took my suitcase out of the closet. I slowly, carefully packed every piece of clothing, every item. Each action felt like closing a chapter. There was no point in staying with her in this house anymore. What was once our home now brought me only sadness and heartbreak. While packing my belongings, I avoided looking at the photos on the walls. I didn't want to remember the moments we had shared with smiles because those photos now felt like a lie. Within a few hours, everything was ready. I decided to write her a message because I didn't have the courage to face her in person. The message read simply, "I've taken my things, and I'm leaving. I can't live like this anymore. This marriage is over." After sending the message, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to see her reaction. I was no longer willing to carry this burden. When I left the house, there was a deep ache in my heart, but also a sense of relief. Making this decision hadn't been easy, but I knew I had no other choice. As my suitcase sat in the trunk of my car, I thought about the life I was leaving behind. The dreams I once had with Avery were now nothing more than rubble. As I drove away, I felt an inner silence. The radio was on, the sun was shining, but nothing mattered. My mind kept drifting to the past. I remembered the day I first met Avery. Until that day, I never believed I could feel such love, her smile, her way of speaking, her outlook on life. It all mesmerized me. But now I realized how much deception was hidden behind those smiles. I spent a few days at a hotel outside the city. I needed a quiet place to confront my thoughts. I knew Avery would try to reach out to me, and sure enough, when I turned on my phone, there were countless messages and missed calls. But I didn't respond to any of them. Her words could no longer convince me. She had lost my trust, and there was no way to regain it. A few days later, I heard from a mutual friend. Avery was a mess. She had been crying non-stop at home, not even going to work. The news didn't make me as happy as I thought it would because I still felt something for her. But my feelings weren't enough to change the decision I had made. Forgiving her would mean disregarding my own worth. I couldn't do that. Over time, I started to rebuild my life. I moved to a new city, found a job there, and rented a small apartment. In this city, I hoped to leave my pain behind and make a fresh start. One day, by chance, I met a woman named Lily. With her warm smile and sincere demeanor, she brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. When I was with her, I could forget the pain of my past, even if just for a moment. The more time I spent with Lily, the more surprised I was by the idea of trusting someone again. At first, I struggled to let my guard down, but Lily's patience drew me closer to her. Every moment I shared with her made me feel like I was healing. A year later, we got engaged. For the first time in my life, I could imagine a future without the shadow of the past. Meanwhile, Avery's life took a different turn. Mutual friends told me she had become increasingly isolated. She had returned to her partying lifestyle, but it wasn't enough to fill the void inside her. I saw one of her social media posts. She had shared an old photo from the past, captioning it with just a few words. I realized the value of what I lost too late. Those words no longer meant anything to me because she was the one who created those losses. In the end, when I look back on the past, I realized something. Avery's betrayal may have distanced me from the person I loved most, but it also gave me the courage to build a new life. Everyone has their limits, and I could no longer stretch mine. Now, with Lily, I was living a life built on trust and love. This was the happiness I had always felt I deserved. Every story, however, serves as a lesson for me and perhaps for everyone hearing this story. Betrayal doesn't just cause you to lose someone, it can also make you lose yourself. While she remained trapped in her past, I was moving forward into the future, and that was my greatest victory. Thank you for listening. Until the end, see you in the next episode of Revenge Story Times. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.